Hey, thanks for stopping by. In class, I mentioned the idea that every bush is burning. Let me explain a little bit more. You may remember that in the book of Exodus, God speaks to Moses, but God can't appear fully to Moses. The power and the light would destroy him. So God appears in the form of a bush that's on fire, a burning bush. So this idea of the burning bush, that's what I was talking about. What I'm mentioning is an idea that comes from Elizabeth Barrett Browning. She was a poet, lived, I don't know, 175 years ago. She wrote, you may have heard of the line, "How do I love thee? Let me count the ways." That's her. And she has this poem. This is an 1856 poem, Aurora Lee. And she penned these lines: "Earth's crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God." Earth's crammed with heaven, I repeat. Every common bush afire with God. Earth is crammed. Heaven is just crammed all through earth, and every bush is afire with God. But only he who sees takes off his shoes. Those are the only people who can see it. The rest sit around it and pluck blackberries and daub their natural faces, unaware. They're unaware that this burning bush is right in front of them. But every bush, not just the one. So, like countless poets, artists, thinkers, and singers through the years, Browning here insists that the world contains holiness, or whatever you want to call it. She talked about holiness. Call it beauty, call it truth, call it meaning, significance. God, the gods. And each of us can see it if we'll only look. Just look. Just notice that every bush is afire with God. Every bush is burning. And then when we see that, we will take off our shoes. We will be left in awe. Do we have to be Moses on Mount Sinai? No. Messiah card not required. Nor do we have to travel to the Holy Lands, because every bush is burning and earth is crammed with heaven, right where we are, and for all of us, if we simply choose to see it. And we can find this kind of idea in thinker after thinker. Sometimes the overall message is inherently spiritual. Let me read you a quote. Browning's quote is spiritual. And let me read you another one. This is from the priest, Richard Rohr. He says, "I was converted to a love of nature and the great mystery by a simple little grasshopper who was completely at home and who became the focal point of my wondering and adoring gaze. That one little grasshopper turned into a million grasshoppers and led me to recognize that everything belongs. Everything is part of the whole, and everything is holy." Same idea. But you don't have to work with spiritual writers or thinkers. Here are lines from the poet William Stafford. He was in a car accident. He felt like he nearly died, and he wrote then a lot about death. And this poem talks about coming near death and discovering a crucial truth. Here are these lines from Stafford. "Suddenly, in other words, suddenly at the moment of death, this moment is worth all the rest. Never has the sweetness arched so near and overwhelming. They say a green flash comes, if you are lucky, right at the end. Now, you see, it was always there." The sweetness, in other words, says Stafford, has always been there. So we can see this in thinker after thinker. The Ojibwe author Louise Erdrich makes a similar point about wisdom, specifically the kind you find in books. In one line, she equates the gifts that books offer to the lakes that surround her home, declaring you could think of the lakes as libraries. So once again, truth is there for the taking. All we have to do is dive in. Every bush is burning.